Welcome everybody, and thanks for coming. Today's presentation is given by Douglas Castro here. He's the founder of Darkglass Electronics, and Darkglass makes awesome products for bass players, and he will tell us his story today.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Doug Castro. I'm originally from Chile, South America. I'll tell later how I ended up in Finland. It's a cool story, actually. But yeah, basically, when I moved to Finland in 2010, I founded Darkglass Electronics. We basically make really cool equipment for bass players, generally, specifically. We are basically what happens when you grab a bunch of people who love engineering and electronics as much as they love to play and make music. So we kind of combine those, and this is the product. I'll show you a brief video where we actually released a really cool product last week that we worked on for over 2 years, and we made this a bit long promo video, but I took kind of like the best part is 90 seconds, and it'll give you an idea of kind of like what we do. So let's see if it works. Right. Okay, so in that video we showed a bit of the manufacturing process of this product. These are new bass amplifiers, which were super proud of. This took 2 years of our lives, 5 people working 80 hours, 7 days a week for the most part. So we're really proud and happy to make it happen. And that's kind of, that video shows a bit of our philosophy, which is to make really high-tech stuff combined with handmade. You know, if you talk about cars, you can think of Ferrari, you know, like really powerful machines that have a lot of handcrafting. All of our products are fully made in Finland. And we're actually sourcing the circuit boards from European companies as well, so we try to keep everything as local as we can. And we have a shop in Helsinki now. There is 12 people, and all they do is build this stuff all day long. We're shipping around a bit over 1,000 units a month by now, and they're all fully made in Finland. Actually, the chassis are also made in Helsinki. The images we saw of the drill working through the chassis are from a company called Amak, and they're in Tahtarisuu actually. So everything is super local. We buy leads from Pori, and everything is made in Finland. So we're really proud to actually have that done here. It'd be a lot cheaper to have it done in Asia, but I think it's really cool also that we're able to make it here at a price that's kind of reasonable. I think it really forced us as engineers to make the assembly process very efficient. This is a picture of the guts of the product. It's very clean, but it's very nice. So yeah, believe it or not, this took a couple of years of my life and some of the best people in my team. So it's a really, well, you guys develop things, so I'm sure you guys know the pride you feel when you spend so much time working on something and you're so sure it's not going to work at many times, and then finally it's done. So that's the guts. And these are some of our artists. We have a lot of like really high profile artists where we've been very fortunate with that. That's on the right is actually, well, left is Billy from Faith No More. In the center is Amos who's the bass player for Taylor Swift, Slipknot, Cannibal Corpse, Devin Townsend, Periphery. We have many like multi-Grammy award winning artists. So yeah, we've been very, very lucky with that. It's really great to have some of your heroes using the stuff you make. So just give you a little bit of background of my company. We started in 2010 here in Helsinki, Finland. Our revenue has grown 25 times since then. So we went from 0 revenue to almost 2.5 million, which is our estimated gross revenue for this year. 16 employees, actually that's 15, I made a mistake, sorry. We have around 350 retail locations, which means stores carrying our product in 45 countries and in 4 continents. So the growth has been very fast for us, and we've been really aggressive with that. I think when you make something that you really believe in, when you make something that you know it's good, you can really be aggressive and push it really confidently. So a big part of what I want to talk about today is doing things that you really believe in, is doing things that you know, that you feel that are great, because how much you like doing them and how important you feel it is for you. And I think once you have that, you're really you enable yourself to push really hard, and actually that same passion is the one that carries you over through the hard times that you encounter in countless occasions when you're trying to make something big and bold. Well, by Finland. Actually, this is a photo of my hometown. It's called Castro, just like my last name. It's a coincidence. I come from a small town in southern Chile. It's in an island, actually. My town is around 40,000 people, and it's over 1,000 kilometers south from Santiago, so I'm literally from the opposite side of the world. Why I ended up in Finland? I started playing bass when I was 13, and the first thing I loved was metal. And of course, I loved heavy metal. Finland was the main place. So Children of Bodom, Stratovarius, Nightwish, oh my god, Turisas, all that stuff. So I had the chance to go to travel as an exchange student for a year. And when they asked me what country would you like to go to, I said Finland first. Sweden was second, so that's a good, but Finland was my first option. And yeah, luckily I made it. And actually in 2004, I had the fortune of studying 1 year in Riihimäki. That year changed my life, actually. It was great because I came here and all of a sudden I wasn't weird because I liked metal, there was so many, and I could play with bands. It was one of the best years of my life. I loved it so much that when I went back home, I was really depressed because I wanted to be in Riihimäki. Probably the only person to have lived in Riihimäki that really wanted to go back to Riihimäki. But it was all I obsessed about. So my plan was, okay, go back, finish high school, get the fastest degree I can possibly can, something that I could hopefully could get me a job here, and then save some money and move here as soon as I could. Which was kind of what I did. I finished high school. I went to study electronics, technician, 2 years, passed, and worked for a year, building my first pedals, actually developing my technology. Sold the first units, and with that money, my family also helped me a little bit. I was able to get tickets, and I moved to Finland and get a working permit and everything. And I moved here in late 2009. It took me roughly a year to get all the paperwork done, get the working permit and everything, and I still remember the day that I got it. The day after, I went to the patents office, registered my company, and started working really hard since then. Why on earth would I start a company making bass equipment? Well, I'm a bass player, that's me, full rockstar mode. Actually, funny story, the drummer in this picture, you can see because, he's behind the drums. He's Rolf Pilvi, he now plays drums for Stratovarius. So, funny story, yeah, that was a death metal band I had. 13 years old, my dad buys me my first bass guitar. I fell in love with it, and that's all I cared about since then. Then I realized that kind of music wasn't a really viable career choice, so I went for actually electronics, which ended up liking as much or even more as playing music, so I was really fortunate. So that's kind of like the background story. That's how I ended up here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now I think it's important to move on to why I do these things. This is one of my favorite quotes. The reason why is I just love creating things. Since I was little, I loved the idea of having an idea, paint it, draw it, write it, whatever it is. And then when you're done, you have an object. You have something that actually you can show others. Others can read it, can use it, can enjoy it. That idea for me, for some reason, was always incredibly appealing. So then when I started playing music, and I realized that I could also combine this with my need to create things, I could sort of merge them and create my own thing and my own path. At this time, also when I was around 20 years old, I realized that the only future I was interested in was a future where I could dictate where my life was going. I wanted complete freedom. I wanted to do what I wanted when I wanted. And entrepreneurship was sort of the only path to doing that. So it sort of happened by accident. And I love this quote because it's very true. I think when we're trying to create something that's difficult, we often try to overthink it so much, and we try to use our powerful minds to kind of like bulldog into it, and we kind of like crash against the wall many times. When I think some of our best work comes from we're not even working, you know, when you're taking a shower, you're in the gym, going for a walk, your mind is always working. Your mind is naturally drawn to things that you love. I think it's important to recognize what are those things early on. And when you recognize them, then you know, okay, I can focus on this, and you know, you'll be working when you're sleeping, you know. That's a Large Hadron Collider, of course, in the background, the greatest engineering feat of all time. That inscription is actually in the circuit board of the video of the product I showed you. It reads, "Once just an idea, uncertain and fragile, is now loud and real. So loud it rumbles the earth beneath it. Ideas can shake the earth." Well, the part you don't know is that this amplifier is actually insanely loud, and if you plug it to a speaker and play, the room will literally shake with it. But at some point it was only an idea. It was this fragile, abstract thing in my imagination that many times almost didn't happen. This is one of the things I also want to talk about here is why do we do all these difficult things? You guys are engineers, so I'm sure you can relate that when you're in the midst of a really big, ambitious project, you're like, why the fuck am I doing this? So why did I choose to do this? It's an important question, you know? And I think to some degree it's because it's really cool when it's done. It's really cool to have this thing that when this is ready, for me at least, I go back to all the times where I was sure the project was doomed. I was sure it wasn't going to happen. But we still went to work and executed as it was certain, you know, for sure. And it's really nice when you see that your worst fears are unfounded, you know, when you've been wrong, when you doubt it. For me, that's very empowering, and that's why every time I see something that I created that took a lot of hard work, a lot of hours, a lot of suffering, it's really empowering because you know that if you put enough work, cool things happen. Big things have small beginnings. David, the killer robot in Prometheus. In the background is a sequoia tree, which is the biggest tree in the world. The tallest one is 115 meters long. They're actually so big that scientists have found unknown types of bacteria in the top. The cool thing is that the seed is this big before it's that big. And I always love the idea that you can build huge, massive things from very small beginnings. You know, Apple is a great example. You know, two guys working in a garage, and now it's the second biggest corporation in the world. This idea for me is very inspiring. I think this is one of the reasons of when you're like, why the fuck am I doing this? Because of this, you know, because it's really cool to have something that you saw from its very small, humble beginnings, and you see it grow, and you see it develop, and you see it evolving to something new. For me, that's truly amazing. When you start a company, it's often yourself. If you have the fortune of having a good co-founder, actually, I'm not the founder, I'm the co-founder. I have a partner, luckily. In the beginning, it's 2-3 people in a room working, in a bedroom or in a garage. And then if you're lucky and if you make the right decisions enough times in a row, you end up with a group that's always growing and always evolving. And for me to be able to sit back and see what this thing has evolved into, it's the greatest privilege. It's the coolest thing ever. I like the sequoia tree metaphor a lot because it really reminds me of that. And when I'm going through rough times, I just Google for sequoia tree and kind of like I'm reminded that things can still grow really big. Obstacles. You will encounter obstacles, no doubt about it. Anyone who's done anything important has encountered countless obstacles. One of my favorite quotes also by my favorite Stoic. It's really true though, obstacles and adversity are the best teachers. At least I've learned the most from the darkest times. On the background, Thomas Edison, of course, the guy who invented the first viable light bulb. It was like his 1100th prototype that worked, and he said that he learned also 1,000 ways how to not make a light bulb, which I always thought was really cool. There's a cool story about him too, which is a lot about his attitude and why he was so successful, I think. At some point, his shop burned. The work of his whole life was literally burning in front of his eyes. And when his son comes with him to see the fire, he tells his son, go get your mother, go get your mother. And the son is like, why? Because she'll never see a fire like this again. That's the attitude you need to have, I think. Like, something shitty happens, good, no problem, we'll fix it, we'll figure it out on the way. I think that's the attitude you learn to develop. I think it's an attitude that you learn to develop over time. It's a muscle that grows and grows. As things get more difficult, you also get better at handling difficult things. I'd like to believe so, at least. I'd like to think that all the great traits that we see from the greatest people are something that we can learn and learn from and actually grow into. When shit hits the fan, I ask myself 2 questions. What can I learn from this? And if there's nothing to learn from it, because sometimes shit just happens, you know, your factory burning, yeah, maybe like, you know, if you didn't have insurance, you can learn, okay, next time I'll have insurance. But if you did, then what good can come from this, you know? And usually, if you think about it enough, you can find at least some prospect good that might come from this. And it's important to focus on that. That'll keep you driven, that'll keep you going. Even when you feel like quitting, and even when you feel that it's pointless, you'll still feel like, okay, how can we turn this around? And I think just learning to think this way, it's not easy, you know, when something wrong happens. The first instinct is to say like, oh shit, I'm fucked. And yeah, like sometimes you are, but I think when you're able to turn around, at least in your mind, you're much better off than if you just like feel defeated or wronged. Okay, counterintuitive signs if you're the middle zebra. I am certainly the middle zebra. I see a big problem in society nowadays, and it's something that's very inherent in my culture, in my country, and I think I see it a little bit in Finland as well. That is that when you're little, the moment you are different, the moment you're somehow unique or weird in your own way, society tends to like want to bring us back to normality. You know, society wants just average. And I think it's very, very easy. I think most people are remarkable when they're little, and all the uniqueness just gets beat down by society by the time they're out of high school, and I think that's a big problem. I think if we're going to do something really cool and big with our lives, we have to reconnect with that inner child that just didn't give a fuck. You know, someone who just like, I'm myself, I'm weird, I'm crazy, good. With the years, I've found that some of the things that I was the most ashamed of, some of the things that brought me the most pain in high school with my peers, are some of the biggest assets I have right now. You know, for example, with me, I think we can all relate to this. With me, I was always extremely obsessive, and that was always a problem. Like with girls, high school was a nightmare for me. But then when I started developing my own technology and starting a company, that was good, because I would never let go. I was like, if I have to try 1,000 times, I'll die trying. But because I'm really obsessive by nature, and that's one of my assets. And I think every time I meet people that are really self-aware and they're really ashamed or they feel guilty about a natural trait they have, most often than not, that trait is one of the things that they can contribute the most with in their teams, in their companies, with their social circles. So I mean, it's super important. So here I'll talk about some counterintuitive things that might make you feel bad, but that actually shouldn't. You should feel good if you feel some of these. Resistance, you know, that's my favorite Russian weightlifter, because who doesn't have one? Dmitry Klokov, silver medalist in the Olympics. Then in this picture, I think he has 215 kilograms over his head. Insanely strong, he's a monster. But he wasn't born that way, you know? He couldn't lift those weights when he was 10 years old. And he didn't get that strong by not facing resistance, you know? He did it because he willingly faced resistance every day, day in and day out. And he never looked for easy resistance. The moment he could lift 100 kilos, okay, 105. The moment you get 105, 110. I think that mindset is the one that we need to have when we want to grow forever, you know, continuously grow, is how far can I push it? The moment something becomes easy, you should move on to something that challenges you, or like you should try to push that to new levels. If you want to lift 200 kilos over your head, or if you want to take your company from 0 to 10 million, from 10 million to 10 billion, you need to have this attitude. The moment something gets comfortable, it's time to expand that comfort zone by making yourself uncomfortable on purpose. I think this is super important. I like lifting weights because I'm a bit masochist, but also because I think this is a really cool metaphor for life, that the moment you can lift a certain amount, okay, then you have to move on to something heavier. Feeling inadequate. That's a really cool quote from Game of Thrones, actually. you'll face challenges along the way, and those challenges will make you feel inadequate. You know, many times it's very normal to feel that I don't have what it takes. This is too difficult. I can't handle this, and that's good. Actually, I think this is one of the things that you feel. It feels like shit when you feel it, but it's actually good that you feel it, because one, it means that you're pushing yourself. If you're pushing yourself to the limit, one of the good things that there's less competition, because most people are not willing to push that hard. It also means that you have self-awareness and that you're humble. It means that you're really honest with yourself, and you can really see the things that you can get better at. You know, it really shows that you're really aware of what you need to improve on, which is, it's mandatory if you want to do something big and awesome. Now I'm able to think a certain way that allows me to manage all this, manage my company, manage the engineering challenges, the marketing problems, the sales problems, supply, whatever it is. I know I can handle it, but it wasn't like this. I learned to think this way. I learned little by little, just like Klokov did with the pressing 200 kilos over his head. I started with little weights, and little by little, as shit got tougher, I also got better at handling it. But I felt inadequate most of the time, and I think that's good. Right now, some of the things that made me feel insecure 3 years ago, I don't even tell my wife about it. It's like, it's nothing, you know? And I think that's a really cool feeling too, but it's important to allow yourself to feel inadequate. That feeling of inadequacy will actually keep you up at night. It'll keep you getting better. It'll keep you thinking, researching, finding ways to actually get better and become more adequate. So this is one of the things that feel bad, but actually shouldn't feel that bad. Self-doubt. The counterfeit innovator is wildly self-confident. The real one is scared to death. Stephen Pressfield, who wrote a really cool book called The War of Art. It's a really good book for creative people. I think I recommend it to everyone. In the picture is Charles Darwin. He suffered from depression most of his life, and actually in one of his journals he wrote that he lamented not being intelligent enough to do science, and he should let more capable men do the work for him. Ironic, coming from one of the brightest minds of all time. Creative, original people are full of doubt, and I think that's also very normal. Again, it means that you're self-aware and that you're humble. And actually, if you really doubt your work, of course, there's a point of diminishing returns. If you doubt it too much, you will be terrified to do anything. But if you can push through that doubt and actually allow yourself to feel it, but just keep working on it, that will keep you making it better. I think all the people who built things that were leaps and bounds from anything else that existed until then were really self-aware of it. They doubted it a lot. And because they had so much doubt, they worked on it so much that they actually ended up making it better. Be crazy. I've been called crazy most of my life, to be honest. So this is one of the biggest. I wish I would have seen this slide when I was 15. If you have crazy drive, if you're really motivated, if you're really obsessive, if you're really talented at something, people will think you're crazy, because I mean you are kind of crazy. I think the kind of obsession you need to be world class at something it's not balanced. It's something that requires way more time than most people are willing to work on. It requires going through a lot more suffering than most people are willing to go through. In this picture is Daniel Day-Lewis, sorry. In an interview, he said that most people think he's mad because of the way he works. He has the craziest acting method I've ever heard of. When he plays a character, he becomes the character for months on end. When he played Lincoln, which is when he got the last Oscar, he actually lived in a cottage without electricity for 6 months, reading from a candle and shit, like no running water, no toilet. He lived like Lincoln lived. In the first picture, which is when he won his first Oscar for In the Name of the Father, he played it's based on a true story. He played an IRA, actually someone who was convicted for bombing, for a terrorist attack, like he didn't commit. And the person confessed after 3 days of being incarcerated. And he said that he couldn't understand how would someone confess to a crime they didn't commit. You know, it was beyond his mind how someone could do that. And then he realized that for him to play the role convincingly, he would have to understand it. So what did he do? He asked the police to arrest him. He spent a week in prison, and he told them, do what you would do to me if I was guilty of putting a bomb on a building. So actually they arrested him. First night he tries to sleep. The police come and they hit the bars with their sticks every 30 minutes so he can't sleep. They do that for 3 days straight, and he didn't sleep for 3 days. After those 3 days, they interrogate him for 9 hours. and then he really understood super well how someone could confess to a crime they didn't commit. His method is crazy, it's unreasonable. Who would do that? Imagine his wife, his family, yet he's the only actor to have won 3 Oscars, so it has its benefits, but it also, you pay a price for it, I think, for being crazy. But I think if people call you crazy, I think it's a really good sign. Actually, if I have a really cool plan that I'm really excited about, if I tell it to people I trust, people that I love, people that love me, if they don't think I'm crazy right away, I know, like, shit, I'm aiming too low. Like, I need to, like, keep pushing it, because your big vision, let's say for the next 10 years, it has to be so ambitious that most people who know you will think it's crazy. I think that's a good sign. So if people don't think you're crazy, keep working. Innovation. To build something huge, you'll have to innovate somehow. It doesn't have to be in technology, but maybe on a business model, or in technology a lot. I don't work in the most high-tech field in the world, but we've had to innovate a lot to make some of the products we wanted to make viable and possible. The one thing I've realized about innovation is that money, resources, and like crazy genius don't matter so much, because there's a lot of failures also, super high IQs. And look, Wall Street has more wealth than anyone else, and they don't innovate in anything. So innovation is about courage, resourcefulness, and perseverance, and mostly about passion. You need to be really passionate about something. You need to be obsessed about something to be able to innovate in it. And when you're obsessed, you'll have the drive, you'll have the perseverance, you have the resourcefulness, and mostly you'll have the courage, because innovating means that you are by yourself in the dark. You can't see the road ahead. You have no idea if your efforts will pay off or not. You just hope that it will work out, and that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of, you need to be very brave and tough to overcome that dark feeling, like you have no clue whether it's going to work or not. No one else has done it before, so, but that courage, that resourcefulness, that perseverance is what brings the biggest opportunities. So if you feel like you're in the cloud, where you can't see anything, keep going. It's important to keep going. And lastly, I think this is probably the most important for me. Well, that's Elon Musk in the picture, of course. If you haven't heard of him, he's the co-founder of Tesla, SpaceX, PayPal, and arguably SolarCity. So he's the only man in history to have co-founded not one but 4 multi-billion-dollar companies. And he's changing the world now with Tesla and with SpaceX. He's the one who has a plan to build the first colony in Mars and actually bring 1 million people to live in Mars. But he said this, someone who's so good at fixing problems. So life needs to be about more than just that, You need to be able to fix problems that make your future seem more exciting. Focus on problems that make your life more rich, something that makes you excited about being alive and grateful. Because you're engineers, some of you might be going through like really tough challenges at work. Keep going, I think it's very important that when you're struggling a lot, to know why you're struggling, like why is this worth your suffering, and why is it worth you getting better at it? If it makes you feel like life is better or the world is better because of your work, good. If it makes you more excited about your future, good. If fixing problems is what you love and makes you excited about wanting to be alive, then even better. Super important. And last, this is probably my favorite quote. When I said that now I'm able to think and act in a way that allowed me to handle all this pressure and stress and probably grow a lot more, it's because I found my inner invincible summer. And the only way to get through that is to get to that is going through enough winters. I think darkness is really underrated, to be honest. That's when we are the most humble and the most receptive to learning and improving, and the most likely to look at ourselves in a really honest light and see what are the things that we're doing wrong that we could do better to be better. At the end, the goal for me is to be all I can be. It's to be the best version of me that I can. And for me, difficulty is necessary. And that's why I talked so much about doing difficult things and the value of doing difficult things. It's not just the when you're in a company, you can make a lot of money. That's really cool. It's fun. You can make really cool stuff, really cool products. That's also very cool. You get to meet and work with very cool people. Also fun. But at the end, the best of it is that the difficulty really forces me to become better. Like the feeling of feeling inadequate, like you're not ready, you're not good enough. Good, that means that you're not, and that means that. But that doesn't mean that you can't be. If you can face difficulty the right way, you can actually use it to really push yourself and become yourself. The same as with the Russian weightlifter, you can be that guy in your own world, you know. And I think that's the main goal for me. And I think I'm lucky to have found my own invincible summer. But yeah, you have to be willing to go through some pain to get there. In the photos, Wim Hof, the Iceman, holds like 20 world records or something. He's the guy. He climbed Everest with shorts. He's great. Actually, he ran a half a marathon in Lapland, in Rovaniemi, minus 27 Celsius, barefoot on just wearing shorts. Yeah, he's crazy, and all of his methods are just controlling the mind, meditation and breathing. I've done some of his exercises and they're pretty cool actually. Yeah, Wim Hof, great Dutchman. Well, thank you very much. That was my presentation about doing difficult shit. I think the cool idea now is, for me at least, was to see if anyone has any questions or something. I wanna make this more a dialogue because I think that there's a lot I could learn from you guys also. So if you have any questions or comments, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
So yeah, what has been your favorite problem when doing Darkglass?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I think there were two. Not necessarily related with the company itself. The first one was when I was starting in 2011, and I was living with our girlfriend at the time, and we broke up, and that was before we had any sales. So I ended up being homeless actually, and I ended up living in my office for 2 months without showers. I had to borrow showers from my friends that didn't wash as often as I liked, so I was stinky and it didn't feel really good. That was when the person that I am today began, I think, was when I had fucked everything up and when I was at the lowest of the lowest. I did a lot of thinking then. I realized exactly what I was doing wrong. And I can tell you actually, it was looking for reasons to be a victim. You know, I was looking for reasons to feel bad about myself and hopefully get some pity from people. And I had ended up in that shitty situation because I was thinking wrong. The moment I realized that, I promised to myself that I would never think like that again. I will never be a victim of life or anything. Even if the circumstances guaranteed, even if I had no fault at what happened to me, I'm not a victim anymore. And I just decided, and I promise you, since the day I realized that, everything really changed for me. That was one. The other one was the amplifier, and it wasn't one specific problem, but it was several that we fixed one that we didn't know we had the day before. But then we had 10 more, and then we fixed those, and then manufacturing had an issue because the whole shit wasn't viable. Then, okay, it was viable, but the chassis costed like 500 euros, so it was a nightmare. Making that project happen made me a lot more ambitious because I realized that most of the things that I thought were impossible weren't. And also I learned that when you think you have exhausted every option, you probably haven't. And knowing those two things, I think, has been really key for me. So I think the next 10 years will be very different because of that process of designing this amplifier. So, yeah. Question? Yes?
Yeah, what was the light bulb moment for you that you realized that like you have a new vision for the amplifier, that there's something that you want to do that hasn't been done, that led to the creation of Darkglass in this venture?
Mm-hmm. Well, Darkglass didn't start with the amplifier. We had a lot of products that the amplifier is based on, but the amplifier was like much bigger and a bit more ambitious in the engineering part. Actually, it was when I finished studying electronics and I get an internship in Sony, fixing stereos. My dream back then was to get a job at Sony. But they didn't hire me actually. I wasn't really good at fixing shit, so yeah, I don't blame them. I wouldn't have hired myself, to be honest either. It was really bad. It was really shitty at the time, but I'm really glad it happened. Then I got like a really shitty job, and I quit after 3 weeks. And I just realized I couldn't do it. It was the space you guys have here is awesome. Like if I would have worked in a place like this, I would have probably always worked in a place like this. But it wasn't the case. I was making like $500 a month fixing telephones. It was horrible. After 3 weeks, I realized that okay, I'm not interested in any future that I can't create myself. And I think that's when everything started. Then I realized, okay, the only skill I have besides playing bass is actually designing circuits, audio circuits. And I started designing my first product. Actually, I was 20 years old, and that's the one that's inside the amplifier. Now, the heart of the amplifier, it's a circuit I designed then, like when I was unemployed 8 years ago. But yeah, basically having the realization that, okay, like I have to do my own thing, and there's another way around it was really important. Mainly because it also, I didn't have a plan B. Like I couldn't go back to doing something I hated. Like I would have literally killed myself after 6 months of doing that. So yeah, that was like a really big epiphany for me. Any other questions? Yes?
Can you show the picture of the amplifier again?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know anything about it, so would be nice if you can tell me like what component took the most of the work.
Okay.
Because
Well, actually, this is very cool. This is a module by Bang Olufsen. This the power module is just, it makes the signal of this. This is what processes the whole signal. So you plug your bass here. These four knobs here are what are kind of like the heart of it. And that's the work I did when I was in my early 20s. Basically, we distort and process the signal in a way that's quite unique. Well, Jan is a bass player and he uses my stuff, so maybe he can tell you a bit more about how it is. But basically, we were able to create our own sound. You know, if I don't know if you know Marshall amplifiers, kind of like the icon of rock and roll guitars. We were able to create like our own iconic sound that actually many people wanted to have. And that's the heart of this this product. Actually, in this picture, you can see the first knobs. Yeah, to the left. The first four, that section, it's what makes it so different. I was able to get there by combining several technologies that really weren't combined before. Using transistors, operational amplifiers, and CMOS inverters, if you're interested in analog electronics. And yeah, that's kind of where the magic is. You also had a question?
Yeah, I was asked, how do you originally, like, how did you find artists, or did artists find you? You have all these really cool artists that you like.
Yeah, well, I think the first big one was Justin Mello Johnson, JMJ. He's, back then he was a bass player for Nine Inch Nails. But he's also played with everyone, like the Mars Volta, Christina Aguilera, everybody, like everyone. Through a forum, actually. He posted on a forum. One of our customers had his email. I sent him an email. He asked me, okay, I can tell if it's good, but send me one. If I like it, I'll let you use my name. I sent him one. He loved it, and yeah, we've been great friends since then. Actually, actually, the second big one was Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse. If you're a bassist, a metal bassist, that's kind of like the guy. He's amazing. He's a really nice person too. Yeah, a lot of people loved our stuff in the forums, and he was looking for a new distortion. He found that in the forums a lot of people were talking about our first pedals. He sent me actually, I remember exactly the moment when I got the first email. I was like, it was the best feeling in the world. So yeah, it was just like, the first two were like kind of like luck, just being in the forums, being very active with the community, and just being really like, actually that's one of the things that has allowed us to grow so much. That has been really difficult to scale, but we've put a lot of conscious effort into scaling really well into. Customer service, I think for us that's critical. I still answer questions from normal clients. You know, we're selling 15,000 units a year, and I still answer as many like support questions as I can. If not, then I have a really good engineer and a team that do a really good job at that. But yeah, and I still try to be really active on forums. When someone has a problem, I try to react as fast as possible. Let them know right away that we'll take care of them, and just making everything right. I think that's very important. I think most reasonable people will admit that sometimes just shit happens, like it's okay. And if it happens, then it's up to you to actually not make it not matter, like not make it even, but actually make it a plus, like make them grateful that their device failed. How do you do that? Well, we've done several things. We had some problem with a part a few months ago, and we had like maybe 50 or 60 that had the same issue. It was a supplier problem, it wasn't our fault. But what we did, first we fixed it within a week. The customer had his device back, and also send them a signed letter by me that had a code for them to get a free t-shirt on our website. So you can do little things like that that really don't cost much money and take very little time and effort. That can make the whole difference. And if that pedal fails for a customer or the amplifier fails for a customer, and he gets that kind of service, he'll tell all his friends about it. He'll go online and tell how great you are, and why they should trust you with their money. And for me, that's super important. Like if you're willing to pay me money for me to do what I love, the least I can do is just take care of you as much as I humanly can. So yeah, I think that's been really, really key for us. Yes?
What's the name? Microtubes.
That's a really good question. One, if you're not a musician, and if you're not very old school radios used to run with vacuum tubes, glass tubes. Apparently they sound really good. But actually tube amplifiers are huge. This amplifier is 900 watts and it weighs 2.9 kilos. A 300 watt, a third of the power, tube amplifier weighs 30 kilos. So you have a third of the power, 10 times the size, and twice the cost. But they do sound really good. Actually, what I designed a circuit with chips that could really emulate the sound. So that's why I call it microtubes. It sounded catchy, so I like it. Actually, a lot of our products are called microtubes something. Like microtubes B3K, microtubes Vintage, microtubes 900. If we do different amplifiers with different powers, they'll have different numbers too. But yeah, that's the story behind the microtubes. Yes?
Next question. When did you realize that you have this ability to emulate tubes,
Ooh, actually,
in
that was very interesting because a friend of mine asked me to design him something different, and I had no intentions on doing that. It was too difficult. Like I knew intuitively how difficult it would be. So he told me I can just copy something that exists for you and build it. And he was like, no, I want something new. And I was okay, I'll do it. And basically a year and a half later, I had the first prototype. He brought all of the main people who are now our main competitors. He brought all of their devices. He borrowed them from different friends. And we compared them to my prototype, and my prototype sounded much better. And actually, I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa. Like, that was the first time I realized, okay, like actually I did something that has potential. And that was like life-changing, because all of a sudden I went from being this normal guy, like doing normal things, just playing with electronics, to actually I can build something cool and big with this. If it's this good, if I like it this much, and if this friend of mine liked it that much, chances are there could be a few hundred people that like it that much. I say a few hundred, and now we're selling like tens of thousands a year, so it's really cool to know that there's a few more than a few hundred. But yeah, when we compared it against things that other people were doing, I think that was also a really good lesson for me, because I'd never compared the prototype against something else. I wasn't like comparing myself to anyone else until it was ready. Now that I think about it, that was like really important, because the only standard I had was my own ideal or on how perfect it should be, not how much better than, like 10% better than the competition was. And it was crazy, because working 80, 90 hours a week for 18 months is quite strenuous. My girlfriend wasn't too happy about it, but my friends, bass players were, so it paid off. Actually, ex-girlfriend. So. Wife, don't be mad at me. That was a long time ago. Yeah, so I think that was also really important to like, the lesson there was like, have your own standards, like fuck what everyone else is doing. If you want to do something 10 times better, why would you look at what everyone else is doing anyways? Like, all you need to know is that it has to be as good as you wish it could be. And I think that's a really cool metaphor also for life and companies in general. We suffer a lot through comparison too much, I think, so. Good question. Anyone else?
I'll ask one thing. Can you tell us anything about what's next for Darkglass?
That was my question as well.
Oh,
Okay, so I have like my vision, quote unquote, goes as far as 3 years from now. I think, of course, I have like ideas on what my customers will be using in 50 years. I think it's good to think like that a lot. This 3-year plan came about because I thought, okay, what would I like to do in 10 years? 10 years from now. And then I thought, okay, how can I make it next year? And that next year kind of like stretched out to two, maybe 3. There's a lot of potential with software, actually. This is analog signal processing, which means that there's actually physical components amplifying your signal, processing it. Digital signal processing right now has gotten so good that you can actually do a lot just as well running software. Doing purely hardware is kind of a pain in the ass because if you have like a cool upgrade, you can't implement it, like your product's already shipped. I mean, you can implement it in a feature revision, but then the people who bought it before, then it's not very flexible, you know, it's not very nimble. I think software allows you to, if you figure out the hardware and the architecture right to begin with, then you have a device that gets better with time, you know, because you can update the firmware, add new models, new sounds. So that's what we'll be investing really heavily into. Actually, all the profits we've made these years will be put into R&D for that. So I'll be hiring at least one algorithm researcher and probably one embedded systems engineer to kind of like make that happen. But yeah, I have some really cool ideas with that haven't been done yet. So yeah, I think that's kind of like the next 2-3 years I see maybe a potential for growth of like maybe 4 times what we're doing now in terms of revenue and volume sales, volume sales. Beyond that, I would be lying to you. Like if I told you I have a plan beyond that, I wouldn't be really honest because I really can't see that far ahead, at least right now. Maybe next year I'll know, but as of now, that's kind of like where, as far as I'd like to think. Yes. That's it. Okay, we can drink now. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you guys. Cheers. Really cool.